The red light on the dashboard blinked like a heartbeat gone wrong. The helicopter shuddered over the Lagos Lagoon, its rotors slicing humid air as alarms screamed. The pilot, Captain Jide, yelled over the headset, transmission pressure dropping. We're losing tail rotor authority, brace for a violent landing. Malik Johnson grabbed the door handle and looked at his wife, Amara, whose hands were wrapped around her belly. She was 7 months along, sweat shining on her forehead. The city, bridges, tin rooftops and bright billboards, tilted beneath them. The chopper lurched. A sharp metallic groan cut through the cabin. Malik! Amara cried, eyes wide. What's happening? He ripped off his headset. I'm here. Look at me. Don't look down. The tail swung left, then right, a drunk dance in the sky. Captain Jide fought the controls. I can aim for the helipad at Elagushi, but we'll hit hard, he barked. Strap in. They were too low, too unstable. Through the open side window Malik saw the shallows of the lagoon, dark water flecked with green hyacinths. Fishermen's canoes dotted the shore. A strip of muddy marsh lay just beyond a wooden pier under repair, with piles of coiled nets and a stack of soft palm fronds for thatching. The pilot cursed. The nose dipped. The city spun again. Malik unlatched his seat belt. Don't you dare, Amara said, voice shaking. Malik. He squeezed her hand. His eyes were steady, but there was fear in them too. You trust me? Always, she whispered. Another alarm. The helicopter pitched and lost altitude in a jagged drop. Captain Jide yanked the collective with 2 hands. Brace for impact. Malik yanked the door lever. It slammed open into a blast of hot wind. He pulled the emergency life jacket from the compartment and snapped it around Amara's chest. He shoved a second under her belly and tied it like a sash. Her braids whipped her cheeks. Malik, no. He shouted so she could hear him over the scream of the rotors. There's reeds and fronds down there. It'll break your fall. The chopper will roll when we hit. I can't risk the blades. Don't leave me. He kissed her forehead. His voice was fierce and tender at once. I'm not leaving. I'm sending you to live. Sir. Captain Jide shouted. Sit down now. The floor rattled. They were over the marsh. The water flashed like broken glass. Fishermen on the pier dropped their nets and looked up, faces turned to the thunder in the sky. Malik gathered every ounce of courage and love in his bones. He lifted Amara to the doorway. Forgive me, he said, for what I must do. He pushed with his foot and his shoulder, a kick born not of anger but of panic and mercy. Amara's cry was torn away by the wind. She tumbled into the warm, brown air, life jackets blooming around her like wings. For a heartbeat Malik saw her suspended there. His wife, his child, everything, then she fell into the cushion of palm fronds and reeds. The fishermen shouted. A canoe shoved off its rope. The helicopter bucked hard. The sudden change in weight twisted the tail. Malik hit the opposite seat and slammed back to the floor. Captain Jide swore and wrestled the controls. Smoke curled from somewhere behind them. Sir, belt, now? Malik grabbed the door frame and pulled himself up, eyes locked on the marsh below. Amara's body had vanished into the shaggy green. A fisherman waved both hands and pointed inland. She was moving. She had to be. Hold, the pilot yelled. I've got partial control. The chopper lurched again and dropped. Buildings rushed up in a staggered dance. A line of yellow Kiki Marwa stopped in the road. Someone screamed. Malik yanked his belt tight and pressed his palm flat to the cabin wall, a prayer traveling through aluminum and bolts. God of our mothers, he said. Hold her. The world exploded into noise and tilt. Then, with a jerk, we are not in the sky. The chopper hangs in the air a heartbeat longer, and the scene freezes. Earlier that morning, Lagos woke with the smell of rain and diesel. Malik and Amara stood in the dim living room of her mother's house in Yaba while Auntie Saad tied a careful geli on Amara's head. The fabric shone gold. Amara swatted Malik's hand away as he tried to adjust her necklace. Stop fussing, she laughed. I'm pregnant, not porcelain. You are both, he said, smiling. Also the bravest person I know. They were flying to a foundation event at a beach hotel. Amara's nonprofit had just opened a free clinic in Makoko. The clinic had a generator that actually worked, a birthing room with sterile equipment, and a mural painted by neighborhood kids. The event was to celebrate those kids and to show donors where their money went. Malik, an Atlanta-born tech consultant with Nigerian roots on his father's side, had helped Amara build a donation platform that didn't eat fees. He flew in and out of Lagos every month now, half home in Georgia and half home in the city where the lagoon cut a silver line through everything. Grandma Adesawa, hair wrapped in a simple white scarf, watched from a worn armchair. "A good husband," she said softly, "breaks the yam to save the seed. He will take the blow so the future can grow." Malik kissed her cheek. "You always speak in riddles." "They are not riddles," she said. "They are umbrellas for days like this." A gentle rain started by the time they left the house. On the street, children chased each other with plastic bags over their hair. A boy saluted Amara's belly and shouted, "Auntie, bring twins." She laughed and blew him a kiss. Malik's friend Darius, who handled security, opened the SUV door and looked up at the gray sky. "You sure we're taking the helicopter?" he asked. "Weather's moody." "It saves us 2 hours of traffic," Malik said. "We'll be fine." At the private helipad, Captain Jide greeted them with a quick grin and a checklist. "Short hop along the coast," he said. "We'll be overland most of the time. Smooth ride." He said it like a man who meant it. He had flown governors and gospel singers and aunties carrying baskets of Acura for photo shoots. He had flown in worse weather. They lifted off into a city that always looks like it's in motion, even when you're above it. The lagoon, the markets, the long ribbon of Eco Bridge, the sandy curve of the beach. Amara leaned against Malik's shoulder, one hand absently rubbing slow circles on her belly. They talked about baby names. If it was a girl, she liked Zuri. If it was a boy, he liked Carter, after his grandfather who taught him to fix radios with paper clips. The first tremor was small, like hitting a pothole in the sky. Captain Jide checked his gauges. The second tremor was not small. A hiccup in the tail, a sideways slide, the rotor pitch changing like a voice cracking. Then the alarm. "Transmission," the pilot said, voice tight. "We have to set down." Amara's fingers dug into Malik's wrist. "Is it bad?" "It's a warning," Malik said. "Warning means time." He said it to calm her. He wanted to believe it himself. The city tilted. The pilot radioed the helipad at the hotel. "Emergency descent. Prepare for hard landing." The reply came back fuzzy. Traffic far below slowed as drivers craned their necks. The helicopter shook like a box of bolts in a child's hands. Malik scanned the ground. The hotel pad was out of reach. Too much, y'all. He could feel the tail rotor fighting and losing. A street. A rooftop? No. Cars. Power lines. A line of palm trees along the water. Beyond them, the marsh. Soft places. Safe places. Grandma Adesawa's words walked back into his head. Umbrellas for days like this. He took off his headset and reached for the door. "Malik." Amara said, panic rising. "Please don't." "I won't drop you," he said. "I will place you." He grabbed the life jackets. He looped one over her shoulders and another around her waist. He checked the buckles twice. He looked into her eyes. "Breathe. Keep your chin tucked. When you land, roll to your side. Protect the baby." "What about you?" "I'll ride this bird down." She shook her head, tears coming. "We ride together. We live together," he said. "That's the promise." The helicopter screamed. The city spun. The marsh opened like a mouthful of green. He pulled the door. Wind and noise. He pushed her into the air. "Now back where we began," the pilot's voice breaks through, torn and raw. "Impact in 3, 2. Below, figures run through the reeds, shouting. A canoe slides over the brown water. A hand rises from the green tangle. "Amara?" Another tremor rips the helicopter. The tail swings hard. A billboard rushes toward the windshield, the face of a smiling baby selling powdered milk. "Hold on." Captain Jide yells. Malik tightens his harness, eyes fixed on the marsh, mouth shaping a prayer he learned from his mother in Atlanta and his grandmother in Lagos. A prayer with no fancy words, only need. There is a surge of wind. A crack like a giant snapping a tree. And then, with the helipad still too far and the marsh too close and the city holding its breath, the helicopter drops out of the sky. The helicopter hit the ground in a bone-shaking skid that tore sound into tatters. Metal screamed. Plexiglass webbed into white cracks. Captain Jide fought the dying tail like a man wrestling a river. The chopper slammed once, bounced, then plowed across a patch of sandy fill beside the lagoon and clipped a stack of blue water drums. The left skid snapped. The cabin tilted hard. Malik's shoulders smashed against the belt. His breath flew out of him. Fuel mist hissed somewhere behind. "Kill switch." Jide barked. Malik groped with numb fingers and slammed the cutoff. The rotor lost its angry voice and wound down in a groan, blades carving slower and slower crescents into the wet air. For a heartbeat there was only the ticking of hot metal and the slap of lagoon water against the shore. "Move," Jide rasped, blood at his hairline. "Out now." Malik unbuckled, shoulders burning, ears filled with a dull roar that might have been the world, might have been his pulse. The door jammed, he shoved it with his hip until it popped. Humid air and the smell of mud rushed in. He looked back at the lagoon, at the green mouth of marsh where he'd sent Amara. "She fell near the pier," he said. "I saw fishermen." "Go," Jide said, struggling with his own belt. "I radioed a mayday. Help is coming." Malik stumbled into the open, boots sinking in soft sand. Beyond the construction fence, a cluster of onlookers swelled like a tide, phones already pointed, voices spilling. "Yezu. CZ land. Oga Ide okay? Fire extinguisher. Where extinguisher?" A Kiki driver dragged a small red can across the ground. Someone in a green vest waved his arms to push people back. The chopper ticked, cooling, sulking, alive enough to be dangerous. Malik cupped his hands and shouted to the pier, "Amara." The name shredded in the wind. Across the water, men in faded t-shirts and rolled trousers sloshed through thigh-deep reed beds. One raised an arm high and flashed a cloth in the sun. A woman's cry braided through the noise, sharp, desperate, then steadier. Malik's knees went weak with relief. She was alive. She was alive. "Go," Jide repeated, grabbing the extinguisher to douse a small flame licking somewhere near the tail. "I've got this." Malik ran. He scrambled across the fence at a gap where a plank had fallen, slid the bank and slogged into the marsh. Warm brown water filled his shoes. Reeds whipped his legs. A fisherman reached him and pointed. "Madame Day dear," he said, breathless. "We carry him small. They found her on a mat of palm fronds the workers had stacked for a thatch job. The life jackets had done their clumsy work. One was torn but still ballooned. Amara's gelly hung loose around her neck like a tired halo. Her face was pale under the mud, eyes bright with shock. A scrape ran along her forearm, beaded with red. Both hands gripped her belly. "Baby?" Malik asked, dropping to his knees. She blinked and then focused on him. "Kicking," she whispered, tears mixing with marsh water. "Oh God, Malik. The baby's kicking." He laughed, a broken sound that turned into a sob and then back into a laugh. He pressed his forehead to hers. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm sorry." "You saved us," she said, voice thin but fierce. "Don't ever be sorry for that." "Make we move one fisherman said. "No be place for lie down." They worked with the careful urgency of people who understand that speed is not the same as hurry. A board appeared, then another, then a door taken off a nearby hut, and they made a stretcher because no one was coming with a fancy one yet. Amara bit her lip and breathed through the ache as they lifted her. "In through the nose," she whispered to herself, the way the midwife at the clinic had taught expecting mothers. "Out through the mouth." On the bank, a Kiki driver had already turned his tricycle to face the road, horn blaring to part a path through gathering bodies. Darius burst out of the crowd then, broad-shouldered, eyes sharp, hair tight to his scalp. He took in the scene in one sweep: the cracked helicopter across the fence, the mud on Malik's trousers, the makeshift stretcher. His jaw flexed. "Get in," he said. "General Hospital or your clinic?" "Nearest with fetal monitoring," Malik said. "General." Amara caught his wrist. "Our clinic is 5 minutes from here," she said. "Nurse Ifosa is on shift. She knows me. She'll call an ambulance with a proper bed." Darius nodded. "Clinic it is." He pivoted, clearing a path with his voice and his size. "Make way. Pregnant woman, make way." They eased Amara into the back of the Kiki, Malik climbing in beside her, one hand on the frame above, one on her shoulder. Darius hung off the side and shouted directions while the driver threaded the chaos. Lagos parted and closed around them, people doing what cities do, looking, pointing, moving aside, filming. Over the driver's shoulder, a woman held her phone high, recording Amara's face, Malik's hand, mud and tears and life jackets. A caption would find the clip later, and then a different caption, and then another. Back at the construction site, Captain Jide sat on the skid, breathing through the pain in his ribs while he used his phone to call in coordinates again. 2 street wardens had finally laid down tape, more decorative than useful. A man in a hard hat clucked at the scratched drums. "Who go pay for this?" he demanded to anyone and no one. Jide ignored him. He stared at the tail assembly. Something about the way the casing had sheared nagged at him. Too clean here, too ragged there. He fished a small flashlight from his flight bag and eased himself up to peer along the run where the tail rotor drive shaft met the gearbox. He hissed softly. The line that should have failed from heat and friction looked scored. Not torn. Not exploded. Poor. Captain, a young constable shouted, jogging up in shiny boots. You need ambulance? Already on the way, Jide said, eyes still on the housing. He reached in, fingertip coming back gray with graphite and something darker. He smelled his finger. Oil, yes, and something like burnt rubber. He thumbed open his phone's camera and took 3 tight pictures. Not proof. Not yet. But a question had just put on boots. The clinic in Makoko sat on a street that changed mood by the hour. At dawn, it smelled like wood smoke and wet rope. By night, like fish and diesel and fried plantain. This was late morning, the heat rising from puddles and ribbons. Nurse Efosa, tiny and fast, met the Kiki at the curb with a wheelchair and a voice that could calm a storm. My madam, she said, taking Amara's hand, we've got you. Inside, the clinic hummed like a heart. A ceiling fan spun with heroic determination. A young mother rocked a colicky baby in a plastic chair. A boy with a soccer scrape stared wide-eyed at the woman in the wheelchair. Monitor, Efosa called, and a nurse's aide rolled out the small fetal Doppler like a prize. Gel. Probe. A moment of electric, terrible silence. Then the tinny gallop filled the room. A heartbeat. Steady. Quick. Alive. Malik sagged against the wall and covered his face. He didn't realize he was crying until Efosa pressed a box of tissues into his hand without looking away from the monitor. Strong rhythm, she said. Your baby has opinions. Amara laughed once, sharp with relief, then winced. Lower back, she said. Sharp on the left. Bruising, Efosa guessed, fingers assessing with practiced respect. We need ultrasound to be sure about placenta. I've called ambulance. Dr. Madhu will meet us at General. Thank you, Malik said and meant it with his whole life. Outside, sirens threaded the heat. Darius's phone buzzed and buzzed. He glanced down, frowned, then held it up. It's already online, he said. The landing. And, he swallowed. Bro, there's a clip from the pier. It looks like you kicked her out. Malik stared at the screen. A shaky vertical video showed the helicopter low over the marsh, the door flung open, life jackets bright against muddy sky. He saw himself in silhouette, braced in the doorway. He saw his foot push. He saw the comment flood. He kicked his pregnant wife. Monster. #Justice for Amara. The view count ticked like a fever. That's not, he began then stopped. The camera didn't know the difference between malice and mercy. It only knew angles. Amara reached for his hand. We know what happened, she said. The baby knows. But her voice trembled at the edges. The ambulance doors banged open. 2 paramedics in green hurried in with a stretcher. One of them recognized Amara from the clinic mural and smiled small and serious at the same time. We've got space, he said. Let's go. They loaded her carefully. Malik climbed in, Darius jogging to the driver's window to rattle off the fastest route and to throw his weight against a world that already had its story. The siren spun them into traffic. Markets blurred. A billboard promising miracle data plans glinted meanly. At the construction lot, Captain Jide finished sending his photos to a mechanic friend at the hangar. A reply came back almost at once. That line looks cut. Can't be sure from Pick. Who did last maintenance? Jide's stomach clenched. The last maintenance hadn't been his usual crew. The owner had switched contractors for a cheaper outfit near the edge of the airport, a place with a new name and a fresh signboard, Bright Skies Aero. Jide had frowned at the paperwork a week ago and made a note to check torque specs himself after the event. There hadn't been time. There never is until time sits down on your chest. Blue and white police pickup trucks nosed up to the tape now, late but loud. A tall officer with a trimmed beard stepped down. Inspector Kalu carried himself like a man who didn't waste shoes. He took everything in, the rotor drooping like tired arms, the scraped skid, the crowds beyond the flimsy tape, and then aimed his eyes at Jide. You're the pilot. Yes. What happened? Transmission issue, Jide said. Tail rotor control degraded on descent. We made for open ground. He paused. My passenger's wife evacuated over water. With a life jacket. Kalu's brow flicked. Evacuated or pushed? Evacuated, Jide said flatly. The ground under her was softer than anything under us. A younger officer jogged up and murmured in Kalu's ear, showing him a phone. Kalu watched 10 seconds of shaky video and then cleared his face. We will talk, he said to Jide. After my team secures this. He gestured, and 2 officers began the ritual of acting official in front of 1,000 unofficial eyes. At General Hospital, the ambulance braked into a loading bay. The stretcher slid, wheels clacked, doors swished. Dr. Madhu met them in a rush of clean coat and efficient hands. "Scans first," he said. "Then observation." The ultrasound room was cold in that hospital way that feels like a decision. Gel again, probe again, the screen a gray planet with secrets. He measured, frowned, relaxed. "Placenta intact," he said. "No obvious abruption. You've both had a day, but your baby is a stubborn one. We'll keep you for monitoring." Malik squeezed Amara's fingers until she grimaced and then smiled. "Sorry," he said, easing his grip. He stepped into the hallway to let the nurse place in 4. Darius was waiting there, lower voice now, phone lowered, eyes raised. "Two things," he said. "One good, one bad. Good first. Your grandma is on her way with Andy Sod. They're bringing your bag and some of that bread she swears heals the soul. And the bad." Darius nodded toward the end of the corridor. 2 uniformed officers stood with a third man in plain clothes. Inspector Kalu, trimmed beard, shoes that didn't waste steps. He walked toward them like a clock. "Mr. Malik Johnson," he said. "We need your statement." "Of course," Malik said too quickly, relief turning to nerves. "Whatever you need. My wife." "In addition," Kalu said, voice even, "due to serious public concern and pending investigation into a possible criminal act, we are placing you under temporary arrest." Malik blinked. "For what?" "Attempted murder," Kalu said not unkindly. "We have videos. We also have a pilot who says you opened a door mid-flight." "I saved her," Malik whispered, heat rising from his chest to his face. "I kicked my wife out of a falling helicopter so she wouldn't die inside it." Kalu studied him for a long second. The corridor hummed with distant beeps and the rustle of paperwork. "Perhaps," he said. "But the law must walk whether the ground is mud or marble." Darius shifted, anger in his shoulders. "Inspector, this is madness. You've got 10 different angles and not one of them shows intent." Kalu's gaze flicked to Darius. "And you are?" "Security," Darius said. "And his friend." "Then you will advise him to cooperate," Kalu said. He lifted a hand and the younger officer stepped forward with practiced gentleness that still felt like force. Cold metal found Malik's wrists. Across the hall, a nurse drew a curtain around Amara's bed. A monitor beeped, steady as a drum. Amara turned her head and saw Malik through the gap. The cuffs, the inspector, Darius's jaw clenched hard enough to crack. "Malik," she called, voice cutting through everything. "I'm okay." He smiled at her, small and fierce, and then looked back at Kalu. "Please," he said quietly. Let me tell her I'll be back." Kalu hesitated, then nodded once. Malik stepped to the curtain, leaned in. Amara's fingers found his. "Come back," she whispered. "I will," he said. "I promise." Downstairs, outside the hospital entrance, a second wave of sirens wailed. Captain Jide's message pinged into Malik's pocket just as an officer lifted it away. "A friend says that line looks cut. Bright Sky's arrow did last maintenance. Be careful who you trust." And on the curb, a man in a crisp polo with a Bright Skies logo watched the police lead Malik out, his smile small and private, like someone enjoying a song only he could hear. The police van's siren wasn't loud enough to drown out the noise in Malik's head. Every flash of blue light against the windshield replayed the same scene. The door opening, Amara's terrified eyes, the moment he pushed her into the air. The internet was already rewriting his story faster than he could breathe. They reached the Ikoyi Police Command within 30 minutes. The gate swung open. 2 officers in dark blue waved them through, phones pressed to their ears, probably already aware that the helicopter man had arrived. Inside, the smell of paper, sweat, and instant coffee filled the corridor. Inspector Kalu led him to a narrow room with 2 plastic chairs and a flickering ceiling bulb. "Sit, Mr. Johnson," he said quietly. "You are not being punished. We only want truth before this fire burns higher than sense." Malik sat. His wrists ached from the cuffs. "Truth?" he asked, voice hoarse. "Does truth still matter when the world has already judged?" Kalu studied him. The man wasn't cruel, just tired, maybe too used to the way truth and rumor dance in the same mask. He nodded to a younger officer who placed a recorder on the table and pressed a red button. "State your full name and what happened in that helicopter." Malik inhaled slowly. "My name is Malik Carter Johnson. My wife, Amara, and I boarded a private chopper from Yaba helipad to Elagushi. Mid-flight, the pilot reported a transmission failure and possible tail rotor malfunction. The aircraft began to spin. The pilot warned of an uncontrolled crash. I opened the door and secured my wife with 2 life jackets, then, His voice cracked. I pushed her out over the marsh so she wouldn't die when we hit the ground. Kalu's pen paused mid-word. You're saying you kicked her out to save her? Yes. Did the pilot authorize that action? Malik clenched his jaw. He was busy keeping us alive. Did you intend to harm your wife? Malik looked him straight in the eyes. I intended for her to live. Silence. The recorder hummed faintly. Kalu leaned back, rubbed his chin. There is something strange here, he said. Your pilot statement supports part of your story: malfunction, alarms, loss of control. But the maintenance company claims the helicopter passed inspection 2 days ago. Malik frowned. Which company? Bright Skies Aero, Kalu said. You know them? Malik's heartbeat slowed. No, but Captain Jide texted me before you took my phone. He said something about the tail line being cut. Kalu's eyes flickered with interest. Cut. Yes. Deliberately, maybe. The inspector sat forward. That is a serious claim, Mr. Johnson. Do you have enemies? Malik gave a bitter laugh. In Lagos? In business? Everyone has a few. But sabotage? No. Kalu's radio crackled. Inspector, Hospital Line 1. He excused himself, stepping outside to answer. Malik slumped against the wall. His shirt still smelled of smoke and mud. Through the small window, he could see the city lights glowing over the lagoon. Somewhere in one of those lights lay Amara, breathing, hopefully safe. At that same hour in Makoko Clinic, Amara woke to a stabbing ache in her side. Nurse Ifosa hovered beside her, adjusting N4 drip. Easy, madam, she murmured. Baby's heartbeat strong, but you need rest. Amara nodded weakly. Where's Malik? Ifosa hesitated. Police came for statement. They said they just want talk. Amara's hand trembled. They think he hurt me? Ifosa's silence was answer enough. Amara tried to sit up. No. He saved us. If not for him, I'd be... Lie back, Ifosa said gently. Stress no good for baby. But Amara's mind refused rest. She remembered his face, that mix of fear and love when he pushed her. She remembered the fall, the fronds breaking her fall, the splash of mud, the fisherman's hands pulling her to shore. How could the world twist that into cruelty? Outside, a young boy in a delivery uniform stood by the gate with a parcel. He wore a red cap that hid half his face. The guard waved him through, assuming it was another gift for the miracle pregnant woman, trending on social media. He entered quietly, clutching a brown envelope. For Mrs. Amara Johnson, he said. His accent was faintly northern. Ifosa took the envelope. Who sent this? The boy shrugged. A man by the water. He said it's from Bright Skies. Before she could ask another question, he turned and left. Ifosa handed the envelope to Amara. Inside was a single photo, a close-up of the helicopter's tail rotor. The drive shaft was visibly cut, edges clean, like a blade had eaten through metal. On the back, in small neat letters. Not an accident. Ask your husband who wanted the contract cancelled. Amara's stomach turned cold. What contract? She whispered. Back at the station, Inspector Kalu returned. His face carried the weight of new information. Your wife is stable, he said. But there's something else. The pilot, Captain Jide, is missing. Malik's head jerked up. Missing? How? Paramedics saw him leave the site after giving his report. He never reached the hospital. His phone is off. Malik's pulse quickened. You think Bright Skies had something to do with it? Kalu didn't answer immediately. Maybe. Or maybe he ran because he fears blame. Either way, someone doesn't want us finding out why that helicopter failed. He stood, turning off the recorder. Mr. Johnson, I'm releasing you on bond. You're not free, but you're not a criminal either. Yet. Stay in the city. Malik exhaled, a mix of relief and dread. Thank you. Kalu slid a business card across the table. If anyone contacts you from Bright Skies, record it. Don't act alone. Lagos has deep waters, sometimes full of crocodiles wearing suits. Malik nodded. Understood. Outside, Darius was waiting by his car, eyes red from anger and exhaustion. Man, they made you a monster online. Every blog headline screams the same thing. He kicked her for money. He pushed her over jealousy. Malik groaned. They'll believe anything but the truth. Then we'll make them believe it, Darius said. We start with finding Jide. Meanwhile, at Bright Skies Aero, behind tinted glass and quiet air conditioning, a man named Chief Oi leaned back in his chair. A TV on the wall replayed the viral clip of Malik's foot pushing Amara. He smiled faintly. His secretary, a young woman in a navy skirt suit, entered with a tablet. Sir, social sentiment is 78% negative against Mr. Johnson. Hashtag justice for Amara is trending globally. Good, Chief Oi said, swirling a glass of palm wine. When people believe the husband is guilty, no one asks why the chopper failed. She hesitated. And the pilot? Handled, he said curtly. Accidents happen, twice, sometimes. She nodded, leaving quietly. Oi swiveled his chair toward the window. The lagoon shimmered under the afternoon sun, calm and cruel. He muttered, "You should have left my contract alone, Malik Johnson. Now, even your child will carry the name of a killer." Later that night, Malik and Darius arrived at Amara's hospital ward. She was awake, eyes heavy but fierce. The moment she saw him, tears filled her eyes. "They arrested you." "They released me," he said softly, sitting beside her. "But there's more. The pilot's gone missing." Amara's hands tightened around his. "Malik, someone sent me this." She handed him the photo. He stared at it. The edges were razor clean. "It's sabotage," he said quietly. "They're framing me to hide it." "Who?" she asked. "Bright Skies," he whispered. "They had reason to silence us." Darius frowned. "How deep does this go?" Malik looked up, his eyes hard. "Deep enough that they'd rather kill us than let the truth come out." At that moment, in a dim warehouse near the docks, Captain Jide hung by his wrists from a chain. His face was bloodied, one eye swollen. Two men in black suits stood over him. One spoke with a calm, dangerous voice. "We told you not to open your mouth, Captain. Yet you took pictures." Jide spat blood. "I don't fear you." "Good," the man said, smiling. "Fear makes people sloppy." He nodded to his partner, who pressed a rag over Jide's mouth. The world tilted. The hum of the lagoon was the last sound the pilot heard. Back in the hospital, Amara stirred in her bed, hand on her stomach. "Malik," she whispered. "Promise me we'll survive this." He brushed her hair back gently. "We already did once. We'll do it again." But as the camera of fate zoomed out over Lagos, over the lagoon, over the city lights that blinked like warning signals, a storm was brewing. Somewhere, a file with their names on it sat in a locked drawer marked Bright Skies Confidential. And before dawn, that drawer would no longer be locked. Rain fell in slow sheets over Lagos that night, heavy enough to erase the city's usual music. The honks, the calls of hawkers, the hum of generators. Malik stood by the hospital window, watching the reflection of streetlights ripple on puddles. His eyes were open, but his thoughts drifted between two worlds, the calm, rhythmic beeps of Amara's monitor, and the violent chaos of that day replaying like a cursed movie he couldn't pause. "Still awake?" Darius asked, stepping into the room with a paper bag. "Got some food. Jollof, plantain and suya. I know you haven't eaten." Malik forced a tired smile. "Thanks. But I'm not hungry." "You've gotta eat," Darius said, setting the food on the bedside table. "If you collapse, who's gonna protect her? Or prove your name clean?" Malik rubbed his temples. "I keep thinking about Jide. He's not the kind of man to run." Darius nodded. "I agree. And that's what scares me." Amara stirred on the bed. Her hair was loose now, curling against her temples, and her skin glowed faintly under the soft light. She looked peaceful, but Malik knew she wasn't resting easy. Even in sleep, her hand gripped her belly like she was shielding their unborn child from the world outside. The nurse entered briefly, adjusted the four, and left without a word. Darius lowered his voice. "I called one of my contacts at the airport, a mechanic named Ikenna. He said Bright Skies Aero got the maintenance contract just last month. Guess who recommended them?" "Who?" "Senator Orris," Darius said grimly. "Same man your wife exposed last year for diverting medical funds meant for that Makoko clinic." Malik's stomach turned cold. "He tried to shut her down, remember? She refused to take the bribe." "Yeah. And Bright Skies is his cousin's company. It's all connected." Malik ran his hand over his face. "So this wasn't about me at all. It was about her. About silencing her before she could speak again." Darius leaned forward. "Exactly. But now they found a way to kill two birds, destroy her reputation and yours." At 3:15 a.m., a nurse tapped lightly at the door. "Mr. Johnson, police are downstairs. They said it's urgent." Malik exchanged a look with Darius. "Stay with her," Malik said. "If I'm not back in 10 minutes, I'll call the press," Darius finished. "Go." Malik walked down the corridor, his footsteps echoing against the cold tiles. Inspector Kalu was waiting in the lobby, drenched from the rain. His shirt clung to his shoulders, and his eyes carried that sleepless glint of a man chasing shadows. "Mr. Johnson," Kalu said quietly, "we found Captain Jide's car near the Apapa docks." Malik's heart stopped. "And him?" Kalu shook his head. "Not yet. But there were bloodstains inside and his phone was smashed. Whoever took him didn't want him to talk." "Bright skies," Malik said under his breath. Kalu nodded once. "We raided their hangar this evening. Found paperwork showing the tail drive shaft on your chopper was replaced last week, by a junior mechanic with no certification. Guess who signed the approval?" Malik's voice hardened. "Chief Oi." "Correct. But Oi has money and protection. I can't touch him without proof." "Then we get proof," Malik said. "Whatever it takes." Later that morning, after the rain subsided, a knock came at Amara's hospital room door. An elderly woman entered, elegant despite the damp weather, dressed in deep blue iro and buba, with silver hair coiled neatly under her scarf. "Grandma Adesawa." Amara exclaimed weakly, tears springing to her eyes. "My child," Grandma said, taking her hand. "I saw everything on that wicked phone news. I knew it was lies. A husband who loves like that cannot harm." Malik bowed his head respectfully. "Mama, I'm so sorry." She waved a hand. "No sorry. I came to remind you both, truth does not drown no matter how deep the water." She turned to Darius. "Young man, fetch the bag from the car. Inside is what those men do not want the police to see." He raised a brow but obeyed. Moments later he returned with a worn leather folder tied with twine. Inside were several documents and photos, all marked with the Bright Skies logo. "Where did this come from?" Malik asked, stunned. "From a friend of mine who cleans the airport offices at night," Grandma said proudly. "She said one Oyinbo man threw them away before locking his office. She kept them thinking they looked too important for dustbin." Malik flipped through the pages, his eyes widening. There were forged inspection reports, bank transfers from Moy Holdings to Oris Development Trust, and even an email printout that read, "Ensure the incident looks mechanical. We cannot risk Amara Johnson opening her mouth again. Do it cleanly." "Oh?" Malik slammed the folder shut. "This is it," he said. "This can clear us." But Darius's expression darkened. "Only if we live long enough to show it." That afternoon, a sleek black SUV pulled up outside the hospital. Inside, Chief Oi sat in the back seat, sunglasses hiding his eyes. A younger man in a tailored suit handed him a tablet. On the screen was live footage of Malik walking the hospital corridor, carrying the folder. Oi smiled faintly. "He found it faster than I expected. Tell the driver to follow at a distance. We'll collect it tonight." The aide hesitated. "Sir, there's police protection around them now." "Police?" Oi scoffed. "Money wears a badge too." At sunset, Malik stood by Amara's bedside as Nurse Ifosa changed the drip. "Tomorrow we take these files to Inspector Kalu," Malik said. "Then to the press. Once people see this, they'll know." Amara looked at him, voice soft. "Do you think they'll ever forgive you?" He smiled sadly. "I don't need their forgiveness. I just need you and our child safe." Outside the window, the sky turned red, the lagoon reflecting it like spilled blood. Grandma Adesawa murmured from her chair, "Red skies mean restless spirits." Before Malik could respond, a loud crack split the air. The lights flickered. A nurse screamed down the hall. Then, smoke. Thick, acrid, crawling under the door. "The generator room," someone yelled. "Fire." Malik grabbed Amara's hand. "We have to move, now." He lifted her carefully, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. Darius yanked the folder from the drawer and shoved it into his jacket. Nurse Ifosa helped them toward the exit, coughing through the haze. Sirens wailed outside as smoke poured through the corridors. By the time they reached the emergency stairs, two men in black coats were already at the end of the hallway, faces masked, holding something metallic. Darius froze. "Malik, they're not firemen." The taller man raised his arm and a small device clicked, the sharp snap of a gun silencer being tested. "Go!" Darius shouted, pushing Malik and Amara toward the stairwell. He turned back, kicking a metal cart across the hall as bullets thudded into the wall. Amara clutched Malik's arm, trembling. "Darius." "He's buying us time," Malik said, forcing her down the stairs. The heat from below was rising fast. The fire was real, but the gunmen were faster. Smoke clawed at their lungs. They burst through a side exit into the parking lot. Rain began again, soft but steady, hissing against the chaos. An ambulance horn blared nearby, its headlights slicing through the fog. Malik half carried Amara toward it. Hold on, baby. Just a bit more. Behind them, muffled gunfire cracked through the hospital's rear windows, then silence. Darius was gone. Malik lowered Amara into the back of the ambulance, heart pounding. We're getting out of here. The driver turned. His face was hidden beneath a surgical mask. Where to? He asked. Malik hesitated. General Headquarters, Police Command. The driver nodded. Yes, sir. But as the ambulance pulled away, Malik noticed something on the dashboard, a small metallic tag with a familiar engraving. Bright Skies Aero. He froze. The driver's hand tightened on the steering wheel. The doors locked automatically. Amara, Malik whispered, eyes wide. This isn't an ambulance. And now, dear viewers watching this story, pause for a moment. If you were Malik, trapped in a fake ambulance with your pregnant wife, hunted by men who destroyed your life, what would you do? Would you fight back? Jump? Trust fate again? Tell me what you would do in the comments below, because the next moment will decide whether Malik and Amara ever see the sun again. The fake ambulance roared through the flooded streets of Lagos like a ghost in the night. Rain battered its roof, drowning the city's noise beneath the steady growl of the engine. Inside, the air smelled faintly of disinfectant and danger. Malik's instincts screamed at him that something was wrong. The driver's grip on the steering wheel was too stiff, his posture too controlled. No radio chatter. No flashing lights. Even the siren was off. Amara, leaning weakly against him, whispered, Malik, where are we going? This isn't the hospital route. He brushed her cheek gently, pretending calm. Don't worry, love. I'll handle it. He glanced through the small window separating them from the driver's cabin, and saw it. A pistol holstered at the man's hip. A Bluetooth earpiece blinking red. And on the dashboard, the Bright Skies metallic tag, still glinting under the emergency lights. Amara, he said softly, when I tell you, lie flat on the stretcher and stay down. Her eyes widened. Malik. Trust me. The driver's radio crackled. A deep voice came through, low and distorted. Confirm you have them. Yes, sir, the driver replied. Heading to Terminal 12, Apapa Docks. Cleanup ready. Good. No witnesses this time. Malik's heart pounded so hard it drowned the rain. Terminal 12. That was near the docks, the same area where Captain Jide's car was found. He reached behind him, fingers brushing along the tray of supplies. His hand closed around a small fire extinguisher strapped to the wall. The driver glanced at the rear mirror and noticed movement. What are you doing back there? He barked. Malik didn't answer. He just smiled tightly. Something your boss should have done, checking for leaks. He yanked the pin and sprayed. White foam exploded through the narrow space, blinding the driver instantly. The van swerved violently. Malik grabbed the stretcher handles and rolled Amara to the floor just as the vehicle slammed into a lamppost. The impact was brutal, glass shattered, alarms screamed, smoke hissed from the hood. Malik's shoulder hit the metal wall, but he ignored the pain. He kicked the back door open with both feet and half-dragged, half-lifted Amara into the rain. Move, he gasped. Come on. The driver stumbled out after them, coughing through the foam, gun drawn. But Malik was faster. He picked up a broken piece of mirror from the wreck and hurled it. It struck the man's wrist and the gun clattered into a puddle. They ran. Barefoot through mud, across a narrow bridge lit only by the dying headlights of the ambulance. Rain soaked them both, plastering Amara's hospital gown to her body. Malik shielded her with his arm, half carrying her as thunder cracked above the lagoon. Behind them, the driver cursed and shouted into his radio. They escaped. Johnson's alive. They reached a cluster of abandoned warehouses near the dockside. Corrugated roofs rattled with wind, and the smell of salt filled the air. Malik guided Amara inside one, kicking aside rusty drums to make space. Sit, he said softly. Amara obeyed, shivering. Malik, we can't keep running. The baby. I know, he said, kneeling beside her. But we're not dying tonight. He pulled the folder from Darius's jacket, miraculously still intact, and opened it under the faint glow of a cracked lantern. The documents were damp but readable. There, between the bank transfers and signed orders, was something new he hadn't noticed before, a flight manifest. Bright Skies Aero, Charter 4781, it read. Destination, Cotonou, Benin Republic. Passengers, Chief Oy, Senator Oris, and one final line that made Malik's stomach twist, Captain Jide crew. He was supposed to fly for them again, Malik whispered. That's why they took him. He knew too much. Amara frowned weakly. So this wasn't random sabotage. It was cover-up. Exactly, Malik said. They planned to make his crash look like pilot negligence. But when he survived, they silenced him. He exhaled shakily. We have enough proof to end them, but we need to get this to Inspector Kalu, tonight. How? Amara asked. We don't even have a phone. Malik looked toward the dock. A group of fishermen were hauling nets from a wooden boat under a flickering floodlight. Those men have radios. If I can reach them, we can call for help. He stood and helped Amara to her feet. Stay behind me. If anything happens. Don't say it, she cut in. We've come too far to speak bad luck. They slipped out through the warehouse's side door. The dock was alive with rain and wind, ropes creaking, waves slapping the wooden pillars. Malik waved toward the fishermen. Please, he shouted over the storm. Help us. We need to contact the police. One of the fishermen turned, then froze. His expression shifted. From the shadows behind him stepped Chief Oi's men, 5 in total, armed and wearing dark jackets. A voice rose from the pier steps, smooth, calm, and poisonous. Well, Chief Oi himself said, holding an umbrella as if he owned the storm. Look who the tide brought home. Malik's blood ran cold. You planned all this, he said. You killed Jide, framed me, tried to burn the hospital. Oi smiled. And yet here you are, alive. You're a difficult man to erase, Mr. Johnson. Amara stepped forward, despite her trembling legs. You'll never get away with this. I'll tell everyone. Ah, Oi interrupted, raising a finger. But the world already believes your husband is a monster, my dear. Anything you say now will sound like pity for him. That's the beauty of perception. Malik's fists clenched. You tried to murder my wife and child. Correction, Oi said. I tried to save my business. He nodded to his men. End this. The first shot rang out, loud, sharp, echoing across the lagoon. Malik grabbed Amara and ducked behind a stack of wooden crates. Splinters flew as bullets tore through the planks. He peeked through a gap, 5 men spreading out. The fishermen had fled, their boats pushing into the rain. Malik's hand found a thick iron rod lying nearby. Stay down, he whispered to Amara. When the nearest gunman rounded the crate, Malik swung with everything in him. The rod connected with a dull crack. The man fell instantly. Malik grabbed his pistol before it hit the ground. The others fired blindly. Malik returned 2 quick shots, both wide, but it forced them to take cover. Oi's voice rose again, irritated now. Kill him. And bring me the woman alive. Malik's pulse raced. He turned to Amara. Run to the boat. She shook her head. I'm not leaving you. Please, Amara. For our child, go. Her eyes filled with tears, but she obeyed. She darted toward the dockside boat as Malik laid down, covering fire. The thunder masked the gunshots, the lightning flashing like a strobe. He ducked behind a container just as another bullet grazed his arm. Pain flared hot, but he didn't stop. One gunman charged too close. Malik tackled him and they crashed into the wet boards, fists flying. The pistol skidded away. Malik headbutted him hard enough to send him limp. He turned. Oi was aiming directly at him now. Goodbye, hero, Oi sneered. But before he could pull the trigger, a new voice cut through the storm. Police, drop your weapon. Floodlights exploded across the dock. Inspector Kalu emerged from the shadows with 6 officers, guns raised. Chief Oi, you are under arrest for conspiracy, murder, and attempted homicide. Oi's smirk faltered. You can't prove. Save it, Kalu said coldly. Your emails and bank transfers say enough. We got them from your office while you were chasing your victims. The officers closed in. Oi's men dropped their guns one by one. Malik stood, breathing hard, blood mixing with rain. Kalu approached him slowly. You did well, Mr. Johnson. But next time, try not to stage a whole action movie before calling us. Malik almost laughed. You took your time. Kalu smiled faintly. Good things do. Behind them, Amara cried out suddenly, not from fear but pain. She doubled over, clutching her stomach. Malik, the baby? Malik dropped his gun instantly and ran to her side. Her contractions had begun, fast and strong. The stress, the running, it had triggered labor. Kalu barked orders. Get a car. Now. Within minutes, officers bundled Amara into a police SUV. Malik held her hand as the sirens screamed toward Lagos Island Hospital. Rain washed over the city, but for the first time, it felt like cleansing, washing away the lies, the blood, the pain. Hours later, in a bright delivery room filled with anxious nurses, a newborn cry pierced the air. A boy. Healthy. Loud. Alive. Malik wept openly, kissing Amara's forehead as she held their son. You did it, he whispered. You saved us. She smiled weakly. No, she said. We saved each other. Outside the room, Inspector Kalu watched through the glass with a quiet smile. A miracle born from chaos, he murmured. But deep down, Kalu knew it wasn't over. Chief Oi's arrest would shake powerful men, and powerful men always had friends. The real storm was only beginning. Viewers, pause for a moment before we dive deeper into the fire. If you were Malik, would you risk your life again to save the truth, even after clearing your name? Or would you disappear forever to protect your family? Tell me in the comments what you'd choose, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss. The morning sun crept over Lagos, glinting off the wet streets and broken clouds. The city, ever restless, had already begun to hum again. Buses honking, hawkers shouting, markets opening as if the night before hadn't burned with gunfire and betrayal. Inside the hospital, the world felt still. Malik sat in a white plastic chair beside Amara's bed, cradling their newborn son wrapped in a blue hospital blanket. His skin was soft, warm and dark like his mother's. Amara watched them with a tired but peaceful smile. He has your eyes, she whispered. Malik smiled faintly. And your stubborn heartbeat. A knock sounded on the door. Inspector Kalu stepped in, hat in hand, his usual stern face softened by the sight before him. Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, he said. A strong boy. You've both been through fire and came out shining. Malik nodded. Thank you, Inspector. For everything. Kalu's expression turned grave. Chief Oi is in custody. But, it's not finished yet. Amara's brow furrowed. Not finished? How? Kalu sighed and took out a folded newspaper. The headline screamed. Senator Oris denies involvement in crash, blames foreign saboteurs. Below it was a photo of Senator Oris at a press conference, flanked by bodyguards. His tone in the article was righteous, painting himself as a victim of political persecution. He's spinning the story already, Kalu said. And with his connections in the Senate, it's working. Some officials are calling for Oi's release. Malik frowned. He funded Bright Skies. He gave the order. Yes, Kalu said, but his signature isn't on anything directly incriminating. Everything ties back to Oi, who, conveniently, is claiming he acted alone. He'll take the fall and Oris will walk free. Amara looked down at their baby. So it's all happening again. The powerful escape and the innocent suffer. Not if we move first, Malik said, a spark of determination in his voice. We expose everything publicly, every document, every recording, every message. Kalu hesitated. That will make enemies, Mr. Johnson. Real ones. You have a newborn now. Malik looked at Amara. I already lost everything once. I won't live in fear. Amara met his gaze and nodded. Then we'll do it together. That afternoon, Darius's younger brother, Kunal, arrived at the hospital. His face was pale, grief shadowing his eyes. Malik stood to greet him. Kunal, I'm so sorry about Darius. He saved us. Kunal's lips trembled but he managed a small smile. He would have wanted that. He always said, if I die doing something right, I'll die twice proud. Malik's throat tightened. He was the best man I've ever known. Kunal reached into his jacket and pulled out a small flash drive. Before Darius went to the hospital that night, he gave me this. Said if anything happened, I should give it to you. Malik took it, confused. What's on it? I don't know, Kunal said. But he told me it would make the devil run barefoot. Later that evening, Kalu arranged a laptop in the hospital's security room. Malik, Amara, and Grandma Adesawa gathered around as he inserted the flash drive. A folder appeared, Operation Bright Skies. Inside were dozens of audio recordings and surveillance clips. Darius had been recording for weeks. They listened. Audio 1. Chief Oi, we'll sabotage one engine. It'll look like a maintenance fault. The woman dies, her husband blamed. Cling. Quiet. Audio 2. Unknown voice, what about the pilot? Oi, he'll go down with them. Dead men tell no stories. Audio 3. Senator Oris, make it happen before her clinic's press briefing. That woman's mouth can ruin everything. Amara gasped, covering her mouth. He said my name. Kalu's eyes narrowed. This is it. This is the missing link. But Malik wasn't smiling. His fingers hovered over another file, an email draft Darius had written but never sent. If you're reading this, it means they caught up with me. Don't trust anyone near the airport. Oris has men inside the police too. But if you're smart, use the backup tape in the hangar. Kalu's face hardened. He's right. Oris owns half the command at the airport precinct. If we move without care, this evidence will vanish. Amara looked up. So what's the plan? Kalu folded his arms. We go public. But we do it live, not through me or the courts. Oris can buy a judge, but he can't buy everyone watching. Malik understood instantly. You mean a press broadcast? Kalu nodded. National TV. Tomorrow morning. I'll escort you there myself. Grandma Adesawa smiled knowingly. The truth must walk in daylight if it wants to live long. Night fell. The hospital dimmed to a hum of quiet monitors and soft footfalls. Malik sat awake again, staring at the tiny rise and fall of his son's chest. Amara reached for his hand. You're thinking too loud, she teased softly. He chuckled weakly. I'm thinking about what happens if this doesn't work. If they come again. She turned his hand over and placed it on her belly. Then we fight again. We didn't survive a helicopter crash to die in fear. He looked at her, love and awe mixing in his eyes. You know you're stronger than me. She smiled. That's why you married me. Outside, thunder rumbled faintly, distant, like an echo of the storm that had nearly killed them. But inside the ward, for a brief moment, there was peace. The next morning. National Television Lagos, 9 a.m. The lobby buzzed with journalists, cameras and curious staff. Inspector Kalu's car pulled up at the entrance. Malik stepped out first, wearing a clean white shirt and dark slacks. Amara followed, holding their baby close under a shawl. Grandma Adesawa walked behind them, her presence commanding quiet respect. Mr. Johnson, a reporter shouted, shoving a mic forward, is it true you tried to kill your wife? Malik stopped, turned calmly to the camera and said, I risked my life to save her. But today, I'm here to show you who really tried to kill us. He entered the studio with Kalu and the producer. Cameras were set. The anchor, a sharp woman with bright eyes, gave him a reassuring nod. We're live in 5, she said. You ready? As I'll ever be, Malik replied. The countdown began. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The red light blinked on. Good morning, Nigeria, Malik began, voice steady. My name is Malik Johnson. You've seen the headlines. You've heard the lies. But now, I want you to hear the truth. He held up the flash drive. This contains recordings from Bright Sky's Arrow. Proof that the helicopter crash that almost killed my wife and unborn child was not an accident. It was an assassination attempt ordered by men who feared her voice. He inserted the flash drive into the studio computer. The first recording played. Chief Oi's voice filled every living room and office in Lagos. We'll sabotage one engine. It'll look like a maintenance fault. A murmur rippled through the control room. Reporters stared, mouths open. Malik continued, these men thought power made them untouchable. But today the truth flies higher than their lies. He glanced at the camera. Senator Oris, this is for every mother your greed has silenced. Kalu stood nearby, watching the transmission go live on a dozen screens. His phone vibrated with alerts. Hashtag Justice for Amara was trending again, but this time in Malik's favor. Amara, standing behind the glass, wept silently as she held her baby. Grandma Adesawa laid a hand on her shoulder. Justice walks slow, she whispered, but it walks straight. Meanwhile, across town, Senator Oris slammed his glass onto the floor, shattering it. Shut that down, he barked at his assistant. Now. Sir, we can't. It's everywhere, Twitter, Facebook, radio. Oris snatched his phone, staring at the flood of headlines. Malik Johnson reveals evidence of government sabotage. Audio links Senator to Brightsky's crash. He turned toward the window, breathing hard. He wants a war? Fine. Then he'll get one. He picked up his phone and dialed a number. Activate the fallback plan, he said coldly. If we can't kill the story, we kill the storyteller. Back at the studio, as Malik finished speaking, the anchor leaned toward him. Mr. Johnson, that was powerful. But we're hearing reports of disturbances at the front gate, armed men. Kalu's hand went to his holster immediately. Move the family out. Now. The lights flickered once. Then twice. A faint hum rose under the floor, the sound of backup generators failing. And then a single gunshot echoed from outside. Chaos erupted. What happens next will shake the entire city, and test whether truth can really survive bullets. Before we dive into it in the next chapter, comment below what you think will happen next. Will Malik and his family escape again? Or has Senator Oris finally cornered them? And if you're still here, subscribe right now. The studio lights died, plunging everything into dim emergency red. The air froze, then erupted into chaos. Producers shouted, cameras clattered to the floor, and the low hum of panic filled the room. Malik instinctively turned toward the glass window that separated him from Amara and Grandma Adesawa. "Get down?" Kalu barked, drawing his gun. The inspector's instincts were faster than fear. A second shot shattered the lobby glass. Security guards scrambled to lock the inner doors, but 3 men in black tactical jackets were already inside, faces masked, moving with military precision. "Protect Amara," Malik yelled, rushing toward the hallway that led to the family waiting room. Kalu crouched low and fired 2 controlled shots, taking one of the attackers in the leg. The man went down shouting in pain. The others returned fire, bullets slicing through soundproof glass. People screamed. Amara clutched the baby to her chest and dropped to the floor behind a couch. Grandma Adesawa, trembling but unbroken, threw herself over them both like a shield. "You'll not touch my blood," she hissed. Kalu grabbed Malik by the arm. "We need to move them, now." The inspector signaled 2 guards to escort Amara and her grandmother through the back exit while he and Malik covered them. But the attackers weren't here to bargain. They were here to erase witnesses. The leader's voice rang out through the chaos, deep and calm. "Malik Johnson. The senator sends his regards. Hand over the drive." Malik shouted back, "You're too late. It's already live everywhere. Then we'll kill you for sport." The men opened fire again, bullets sparking off studio lights. Malik and Kalu ducked behind a sound booth. Kalu reloaded. "We need to buy them 3 minutes to escape," he said. Malik's eyes darted around. "We can trap them in the control room, if I trigger the fire doors." "You know how. I built the donation system for this studio last year," Malik said, wiping blood from a small graze on his cheek. "It uses the same security panel." Kalu gave a tight nod. "Do it. I'll cover you." Malik crawled low, sprinting across the shattered floor toward the control desk. Glass crunched beneath his shoes. The baby's faint cries echoed faintly from the hallway. It was the sound that drove him forward. He reached the panel, typed furiously, fingers slipping on the blood-slick keys. "Access control, fire seal mode, authorized." A loud metallic thud vibrated through the walls. Heavy doors slid down across both entrances. The attackers were trapped inside with Kalu and Malik. The leader swore. "Smart boy." Kalu aimed and fired. 1 more man fell. But there were still 2 left, and they were closing in. The leader moved fast, slamming into Kalu's shoulder, sending his gun spinning across the floor. They struggled, fists meeting flesh, elbows colliding. Malik grabbed a metal pole from a broken tripod and swung at the second gunman. The blow connected but not hard enough. The man recovered, punching him square in the jaw. Malik staggered back, stars bursting behind his eyes. The leader snarled, pulling a knife. "This ends here." Kalu, bleeding from the mouth, spat defiantly. "Maybe. But not how you think." He lunged, tackling the man backward into a wall of electrical cables. Sparks flew. The air filled with the smell of burning insulation. Malik, dizzy, looked around for the gun. It had slid under a camera trolley. He dove for it, rolled and fired twice. Both shots hit. The leader fell, knife clattering beside him. Silence. Then smoke. The room was filling fast. Malik staggered toward Kalu, who was slumped against the console. "You okay?" Kalu grimaced. "Shoulders gone. But I've had worse." He gripped Malik's arm. "Go. Protect your family. The fire alarm will open the doors in 2 minutes. That's your window." Malik hesitated. "I'm not leaving you." Kalu managed a small, pained smile. "You've got a son now, Johnson. That's who you stay for." Malik's throat tightened. He nodded once, picked up the flash drive and ran. Outside backstage hallway. Amara and Grandma Adesawa huddled behind stacked props as the security guards tried to find an escape route. Then from the shadows another figure emerged, calm, unarmed, wearing a gray suit soaked from rain. Senator Orris. Amara froze. "You." He smiled thinly. "You're alive. Impressive. But unfortunately for you, truth doesn't save anyone in this country, it just gives them prettier last words." Grandma Adesawa stood up slowly, voice trembling but fierce. "The spirits of the innocent stand behind this girl, Orris. Even if you kill her, your shadow will never know peace." Orris's smile faltered. "Old woman, save your curses for church." He reached into his jacket. A gunshot thundered behind him. Orris froze, looked down at the spreading red stain across his chest, then turned. Malik stood in the hallway doorway, pistol smoking, eyes blazing with fury. "You tried to take everything from me," Malik said, voice steady. "Now you'll answer for all of it." Oris staggered, dropping his gun, collapsing to the floor. He looked up at Malik, gasping, "You think this changes anything?" Malik stepped closer, eyes burning. "No. But it ends you." Oris's head fell sideways, eyes glassy. Kalu appeared seconds later, bleeding but alive, holding onto the wall for support. "It's over," he said, voice hoarse. "Ambulances are coming. The police are securing the building." Malik turned to Amara, finally letting the gun drop from his shaking hand. She ran to him, the baby between them. He wrapped his arms around both of them, burying his face in her hair. "It's really over," he whispered. Outside, the red and blue lights of patrol cars bathed the rainy street. Cameramen, journalists, and onlookers gathered, their whispers growing into a chant. Justice for Malik. Justice for Amara. For the first time, truth wasn't being twisted. It was being celebrated. Later, in the hospital again, Malik stood by a window holding his son. Lagos glowed beyond the glass, chaotic, beautiful, alive. Inspector Kalu entered, arm in a sling. "They're calling it the Bright Skies scandal. The whole country's talking. The president's office wants you to testify next week. Senator Oris is dead, Oi's in custody, and half their allies are fleeing." Malik nodded slowly. "We didn't just survive, Inspector. We changed something." Kalu smiled faintly. "For now. But men like that, they grow back. So promise me one thing." "What's that?" "Stay humble. Stay ready. And love your family more than your revenge." Malik looked down at his son. "That's the only promise I can keep." That evening, as the city quieted, Amara stepped onto the hospital balcony. The rain had stopped. The air smelled of earth and salt. Grandma Adesawa joined her, leaning on her cane. "Your child will be known for truth," the old woman said softly. "But truth has a price. You must teach him to walk in light but know the shadows." Amara smiled gently. "He will." Behind them, Malik stepped out, holding the baby. The moon rose high over the lagoon, painting their faces silver. For once, there were no sirens, no fire, no fear, just peace. But somewhere in a dark office in Abuja, a man was already shredding new documents, whispering into a phone, "Bright Skies was only one branch. Prepare the next operation." The war for truth had only just begun. Viewers, if you've followed this far, what would you do now if you were Malik and Amara? Would you take your family and leave Lagos behind forever? Or stay and fight the corruption that almost destroyed you? Tell us your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss. 6 months later, the Johnsons' world looked almost normal again. Almost. The news had long moved on. The Bright Skies scandal was now just another headline buried beneath stories of politics, celebrity gossip, and economic debates. But for Malik and Amara, peace still felt fragile, like glass balanced on a stone. Their small 2-bedroom home in Lekki was quiet that morning. Sunlight spilled across the living room where baby Zuri, yes, Amara got the name she wanted after all, giggled in her mother's arms. Her eyes were wide and curious, her laughter contagious. Malik stood by the window, watering a row of potted plants Amara had insisted on growing. "You know," she said, "you've become a plant father now." He smirked. "I just like watching something grow that no one's trying to destroy." They shared a smile, but the truth lay under it. They both still woke from nightmares sometimes. The chopper, the gunfire, the smell of burning wires. Then came the knock. 3 slow raps, deliberate, heavy. Malik frowned. "We're not expecting anyone." Amara shifted Zuri to her hip. "Maybe it's Kalu. He said he'd visit before heading to Abuja." Malik opened the door. It wasn't Kalu. Standing there was a man in a wrinkled jacket, his face gaunt but unmistakable. "Captain Jide." Malik froze. "You're alive?" The pilot gave a tired smile. "Barely. Can I come in before someone notices?" Malik pulled him inside, locking the door. Amara's eyes widened. "Captain Jide? We thought that I was dead," he finished softly. "So did I for a while." He sank into the couch, wincing as he moved. The scars on his wrists told stories of chains and pain. "They dumped me near the Benin border. Some fishermen found me. I kept quiet until I could be sure who was still alive." Amara placed Zuri's tiny hand on her lap and leaned forward. "Why now? Why come back?" Jide reached into his jacket and pulled out a small black envelope. Inside were printed photos, grainy but clear enough. Malik took one, his face tightening. It showed a private hangar. Inside, a new helicopter. White, sleek, marked with the word Skyvision Logistics. On the tail, the same Bright Skies emblem, but repainted in blue. This was taken 3 weeks ago, Jide said. Same engineers. Same pilots. Same ownership, just under new shell companies. Malik clenched his jaw. They're rebuilding. Not just rebuilding, Jide continued. They're smuggling weapons, across state lines under humanitarian permits. And the orders? He slid one final photo across the table. Came from inside the government again. Amara's breath caught. Oris is dead. Who would continue this? Jide's voice dropped. Someone higher. Someone using Oris as a shield. They're calling it Operation Phoenix. Malik sank into the chair opposite him. Why tell us? Go to Kalu, he'll know what to do. I tried, Jide said grimly. He's missing. Silence filled the room like a living thing. Amara's fingers trembled. Missing? Yes. He was supposed to meet me in Abuja 2 days ago. Never showed. His office says he's on leave. But I know that code. He's been silenced. Malik stood slowly, pacing. So it's starting all over again. Jide nodded. I came to warn you. They'll come for the evidence you have. And they'll come for your wife again. She's the voice they couldn't silence the first time. Amara looked down at her baby. They won't touch her. Not this time. Malik turned to Jide. We'll expose them again. But we'll do it smart this time. Jide gave a faint, pained laugh. You sound like Kalu. Malik's face hardened. Then let's finish what he started. That night, Lagos was quiet except for the hum of distant traffic and the sigh of the sea. Malik sat at his computer, decrypting the files Jide had brought. Inside were manifest lists, flight routes, and coded transactions. Money moving through shell companies in Ghana, Togo, and Dubai. One name appeared repeatedly, General Iola Badejo, a high-ranking defense official with ties to multiple humanitarian shipments. Amara joined him, her eyes scanning the data. This isn't just business, she said. It's a weapons pipeline. They're arming militias. And using Bright Skies as cover, Malik added. Just like before. He exhaled. We'll need help. Someone outside Nigeria. Someone who can't be bought. Jide nodded. I know a BBC correspondent in Accra. She covered the Makoko Clinic story once. If she verifies this, the world will listen. Malik's phone buzzed suddenly. An unknown number. A text message. Stop digging, Malik. You have a family now. Don't make us finish what we started. Amara saw it too. They know you're looking. He deleted it. Let them come. This time I'm ready. 2 days later, the three of them boarded a bus disguised as traders heading toward the Ghana border. Malik wore a cap pulled low, Amara a shawl over her hair, and Jide sat near the back, his limp making him look like an exhausted laborer. But halfway through Ogun State, their driver's phone rang. He answered, nodded slowly, then met Malik's eyes in the rearview mirror. Sorry, boss, he said quietly. They paid double. Malik's stomach turned cold. Stop the bus. But it was too late. Ahead, at a checkpoint, soldiers stood waiting, faces expressionless, rifles gleaming. Jide muttered under his breath, Phoenix already knows. Amara clutched Zuri close. Malik, what do we do? Malik looked at the soldiers, then at Jide, then back at his wife. His heartbeat slowed. Every decision from here had to be survival, not logic. He whispered, when I say run, head for the trees. Don't look back. Amara shook her head. No. Please, he said, eyes fierce. Trust me. The bus slowed as it reached the soldiers. One officer stepped up, motioning with his rifle. Papers. Malik handed over a bundle of fake IDs. The officer glanced at them, then smirked. You're not traitors. You're ghosts. Malik didn't wait for the rest. He slammed his shoulder into the man, grabbing his rifle before it fired. The other soldiers shouted, chaos breaking loose. Run. Malik roared. Amara bolted out the side door with Zuri in her arms, Jide right behind her. Gunfire erupted. The night lit up with muzzle flashes. Malik fired back blindly, ducking behind the bus. Jide yelled, this way, and led Amara through a gap in the roadside fence toward the trees. They ran until their lungs burned, until the sounds of soldiers faded behind them. But when Amara turned, Malik wasn't with them. Malik, she screamed into the darkness. The jungle swallowed her voice. Hours later, dawn crept over the forest. Amara sat by a small fire Jide had built, rocking the baby who whimpered softly in her arms. Her face was streaked with mud and tears. Jide crouched beside her. We have to keep moving before they sweep this area. I'm not leaving without him, she said, her voice breaking. He looked at her, weary but gentle. If Malik's alive, he'll find us. If he's not. She shook her head violently. Don't you say it. He's alive. I'll feel it if he's not. A rustle in the bushes made them both spin. Then, a shadow stepped out. Malik, covered in dirt, blood on his sleeve but alive. Amara ran to him, sobbing. He caught her, holding both her and Zuri tight. They got the laptop, he said between breaths. But not the flash drive. I swallowed it before they searched me. Jide blinked. You what? Malik grimaced. Desperate times. Amara laughed and cried all at once. You're insane. Maybe, he said, smiling faintly. But you're insane. They continued west through the forest until they reached a small fishing town by the coast. From there, Jide contacted his BBC friend in Ghana. But before she could reply, a news broadcast on a small cafe television caught their attention. Breaking news. Former Inspector Kalu confirmed dead in mysterious car explosion. Authorities suspect foul play. Amara gasped. Malik's hands clenched into fists. They looked at each other, the fire of survival reignited in their eyes. This doesn't end here, Malik said. We finish what Kalu started for real this time. The sun had barely risen over the small fishing village of Semeh when Malik awoke to the sound of waves against the shore. For the first time in days he had slept, though not peacefully. His dreams were jagged flashes, spinning rotor blades, Kalu's voice fading in static, the words Operation Phoenix echoing like a drumbeat in his mind. Amara stirred beside him on the wooden cot, her hand resting protectively on baby Zuri's chest. Jide was already awake, pacing near the doorway of the small hut they'd rented from a fisherman named Afolabi. His limp was worse but his mind sharp. We can't stay here, he said, watching the shoreline. Someone's been asking questions in the village. They described you, Malik. Too close for coincidence. Malik sat up, rubbing his temples. I thought you said your contact in Ghana could help us cross. She can, Jide said, but the border's tighter than ever. Military trucks at every checkpoint. They're not just looking for smugglers, they're looking for you. Amara frowned. They can't possibly still control the army after everything that happened. Jide gave a dry laugh. My dear, corruption doesn't die. It simply changes its uniform. Malik stood and faced the window, eyes fixed on the gray horizon. We don't run anymore. If we keep running, they win. We take the fight to them. Amara turned, surprised. Malik, we barely survived the last one. I know, he said quietly, but this time we're not alone. He pulled a small muddy flash drive from his pocket, the one he'd swallowed and later recovered. This holds enough data to expose the whole network. But we need one more piece to complete the puzzle. Proof of who gave the final authorization. Jide's jaw tightened. And where do you think that's hiding? Malik looked at him. In the military servers. Lagos headquarters. Amara gasped. You're not serious. That's suicide. Maybe, Malik said, but it's the only way to clear Kalu's name and destroy Phoenix before it burns everything. Jide leaned against the wall, studying Malik. There's something you should know before you try that. He hesitated, then pulled a folded photo from his jacket pocket. It was worn, edges smudged. Malik took it and froze. It was a photograph of General Iola Badejo shaking hands with a young man at a tech conference. The man was Malik himself. What is this? Malik whispered. You worked with him once, Jide said quietly. 3 years ago. Your old cybersecurity firm built the data encryption system the military still uses today. You didn't know it, but you gave them the lock and the key. That's how they're hiding Operation Phoenix. Malik's heart dropped. I helped them. Amara stepped closer, laying a hand on his arm. You didn't know. But maybe that's exactly why you can break it. Jide nodded. You're the only one who can. That evening, Malik met Afolabi by the beach. The fisherman was old, his skin weathered from decades at sea. You plan to fight the government from my hut? He chuckled. You people are brave, or foolish. Maybe both, Malik said. But we need your help. We have to reach Lagos without being seen. Afolabi scratched his beard thoughtfully. There's an old route. Smugglers used it in the 80s. Tunnels under the customs office near Badagry. Half collapsed, half forgotten. But if you're desperate. Malik smiled grimly. We are. That night, under a moon drowned in cloud, they left the fishing hut. Amara carried Zuri in a sling strapped tight across her chest. Jide carried a lantern and a small bag of supplies. Afalabi led them down a narrow path toward the old tunnels, hidden behind an overgrown fence. Go quick, the old man said. And may your truth shine brighter than their guns. Malik clasped his shoulder. If we make it out, you'll never have to fish again. Afalabi chuckled. Boy, if you make it out, maybe Nigeria will finally breathe again. They entered the tunnel. It was cold, damp, and smelled of rust and earth. Rats scattered as their footsteps echoed softly. Halfway through, a faint light flickered ahead. Jide lifted the lantern, and froze. Someone's already here. A shadow moved at the end of the corridor. Drop the light, a voice ordered. Malik recognized it instantly. Inspector Kalu? The figure stepped into view, limping slightly, shoulder bandaged, face bruised but alive. Surprised? Kalu said, smirking. They thought they killed me. But Oris's men were sloppy. Amara covered her mouth, tears of relief spilling out. You're alive. Barely, he said. But alive enough to finish this. He motioned for them to follow. I've been tracking Phoenix from the inside. Badejo moved the operation offshore. They're planning something bigger, a demonstration, they called it. Shipment leaves from the naval dockyard in 2 nights. Malik's stomach nodded. A demonstration? They're testing one of the weapons, Kalu said grimly. A missile system disguised as relief drones. If it launches, hundreds die, and they'll blame terrorists. Amara whispered, so we stop it. Kalu nodded. But we need proof first. The control servers in Lagos Island hold the authorization codes. You break in, download the files, and I'll arrange safe passage for your family. Malik met his eyes. If I do this, there's no going back. Kalu's gaze was steady. You already crossed that line when you pushed your wife out of a helicopter. Malik almost smiled. Fair point. 2 nights later. Rain hammered Lagos again. Always Lagos, always the rain. The trio reached the old government complex on the island under the cover of darkness. Malik, dressed in a stolen uniform, led the way. Jide stayed near the van with Amara and the baby, ready for a quick escape. Kalu whispered through the earpiece, cameras looped for 3 minutes. You're clear. Malik slipped into the data room. The hum of servers filled the air like a swarm of bees. He connected the flash drive and began decrypting. Lines of code flashed across the screen. Then, access granted. Files opened, Operation Phoenix, Mission Directive. The author's name blinked at the top of the document. Malik's heart stopped. Signed, General Iola Badejo, with secondary authorization by Malik Carter Johnson. His own name. No, he whispered. That's impossible. Kalu's voice crackled in his ear. What did you find? They used my credentials, Malik said. They forged the system with my old encryption key. To make it look like I built the weapons pipeline. Then they'll blame you, Kalu said. Again. A door burst open behind him. Soldiers stormed in. Malik ripped the drive out and ran. Bullets tore through the wall behind him. He dove through a maintenance hatch, landing hard in a hallway lined with pipes. Jide. Start the van, he shouted into the radio. I'm coming. He raced through the corridors as alarms blared. Outside, the van engine roared. Amara clutched Zuri as Jide opened the side door. Come on, Malik. He sprinted across the compound. Just as he reached the gate, a gunshot rang out. He stumbled, fell to one knee. Blood soaked through his sleeve. Malik. Amara screamed. He forced himself up, clutching the flash drive. Go. Kalu fired back from cover, shouting, Get him out of here. They sped away into the storm. Hours later, in a safe house outside Ibadan, Malik lay on a cot, arm bandaged. The flash drive rested on the table beside him, gleaming faintly in the lantern light. Amara sat beside him, holding his hand. You saved us again, she whispered. He looked at her weakly. No, not yet. We have to send this out. Every journalist, every foreign agency. Kalu entered quietly, soaked from the rain. Already done. The BBC's broadcasting it tomorrow morning. Badejo's finished. Jide leaned against the wall, exhaustion in his eyes but relief in his voice. So we win, right? Kalu gave a small grim smile. For now. But there's always another bright skies waiting to rise. Malik looked down at his daughter, sleeping soundly in Amara's arms. Then we'll keep fighting, he said softly. For her. Outside, dawn began to break, pale gold spreading across a city scarred but still breathing. The world woke up to fire. Every TV, every phone, every radio station carried the same story. General Iola Badejo exposed an illegal weapons operation. BBC Africa played Malik's decrypted files live. CNN followed. Channels TV broke it in Lagos with video evidence, voice recordings, and a digital trail that traced every blood-stained dollar from Bright Sky's Arrow to Badejo's private offshore accounts. In living rooms across Nigeria, people stared at their screens in disbelief. For the first time, the powerful looked afraid. And for a moment, just a moment, Malik and Amara felt that they had won. The small safe house in Ibadan was quiet that morning. Rain fell again, soft and steady, washing dust off the zinc roof. Amara sat by the window, baby Zuri asleep in her arms. Malik leaned against the doorframe, watching her. She looked peaceful, exhausted but peaceful. He hadn't seen that in months. Kalu entered, holding a radio. "It's done," he said simply. "The military council's disbanded Badejo's unit. Interpol's taken over the investigation. You're heroes now." Malik gave a tired smile. "Heroes? We just survived." Jide, sitting nearby with his leg propped on a stool, nodded. "Surviving is heroism in this country." Amara looked up from Zuri. "What about Badejo?" Kalu's eyes darkened. "Cornered. He's barricaded himself in a compound near Abuja. Rumor is he's burning files. He knows prison isn't coming for him, but something else will." Malik frowned. "What do you mean?" Kalu hesitated. "Men like him don't surrender. They vanish." Hours later, Abuja, Defense Headquarters. Smoke billowed from the high walls. Inside, soldiers moved like ghosts through corridors lined with paper ash. And in the command room, General Ayola Badejo poured himself a glass of brandy. His uniform jacket hung loose. His face was calm, too calm. A younger officer burst in. "Sir, Interpol is..." He didn't finish. Badejo's gun was already in his hand. The report was deafening. The officer dropped instantly. Badejo stared at the smoke curling from his pistol, then placed it neatly on the desk. He pressed a button on his computer. A file opened, labeled Phoenix Rebirth Protocol. He typed one last command. Execute remote upload. Across the city, data packets began transferring to a hidden server overseas. Then Badejo sat back, poured another glass and whispered, "You may have won today, Malik Johnson, but your world is built on fragile truth." He raised the drink to his lips, and the next gunshot echoed through the entire compound. Back in Ibadan, Kalu's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and froze. "Badejo's dead," he said quietly. "Suicide." Malik exhaled slowly. "Then it's finally over." Kalu's expression didn't change. "Maybe not. He triggered something before he died. The system just started transmitting encrypted data to an unknown location." Jide straightened. "You mean someone else will pick up where he left off?" Kalu nodded grimly. "Phoenix isn't dead. It's scattering." Amara's voice trembled. "Then, what now?" Malik rubbed his face, exhaustion deep in his bones. "Now we rest. For the first time in forever we rest. We've done what we can." That evening, the three men stood outside as the sun dipped below the horizon. The village smelled of rain and cooking smoke. Somewhere nearby, children laughed. Malik watched them and said, "You ever think peace is too quiet?" Kalu chuckled. "Peace is never quiet here, my friend. It's just catching its breath." They stood in silence until Amara called from inside, "Dinner's ready." Kalu smiled. "She's a strong one." Malik turned toward the doorway, his silhouette outlined in the golden light. "She's stronger than all of us combined." Weeks passed. The Johnsons moved again, this time to Ghana under temporary asylum. Zuri grew fast, her laughter filling every corner of their new life. Amara reopened her foundation, now called the Phoenix Project. But this time it was about rebuilding lives, not exposing corruption. Malik worked quietly from home, consulting for cybersecurity firms under a different name. His story had spread across continents, but he preferred the shadows now. One evening, as Amara put Zuri to sleep, Malik sat at his desk checking emails. Among them was one from an unknown address. Subject line, "For Zuri, when she's old enough to know why her father fought." Attached was a single video file. He clicked play. It was a security feed, Badejo's final moments. The general's face was worn, eyes tired. "Every empire thinks it burns bright forever," he said into the camera. "But the truth is a wildfire. It doesn't choose sides. It consumes." Then the screen went black. Malik sat back, heart heavy. He knew what it meant. Phoenix was still alive somewhere, but even monsters left behind messages that confessed their fear. Amara appeared behind him, touching his shoulder. "You okay?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah. Just thinking about what comes next. She smiled faintly. Whatever it is, we face it together. He took her hand and for a long moment, they simply watched their daughter sleep, a living reminder that life could still grow from ashes. The next morning, sunlight spilled across their small Ghanaian apartment. On the balcony, Malik typed a short message into his laptop, an encrypted letter to the public, his final words to the world that had both cursed and praised him. Truth doesn't belong to heroes. It belongs to those who refuse to stay silent, even when silence is safe. We fought for light, but light is a fight that never ends. When you see injustice, speak. When you see darkness, shine. Malik Carter Johnson. He hit send. The message went viral before noon. Later that night, Amara tucked Zuri into bed and joined Malik on the balcony. Lightning flickered over the ocean. Rain again, she said softly. He smiled. It always rains before peace. They stood together in silence, hand in hand, as thunder rolled across the horizon. Somewhere beyond that storm, men like Badejo were still plotting, still whispering, still rebuilding. But for now, for this fleeting, fragile moment, the Johnsons had peace. And that was enough. Dear viewers, this marks the end of He kicked out his pregnant wife from the helicopter just to save her. From betrayal to redemption, from fire to peace. What began as tragedy became testimony. Now tell me, if you were Malik after all this, would you ever trust the world again? Or would you vanish into quiet freedom, guarding your truth forever? Comment your thoughts below. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, because new stories of courage, love, and survival await you right here on African Tales Opera.